Before the printing press, sharing knowledge was an incredibly slow, painstaking process. Every book, every letter, every idea had to be copied out by hand. Imagine a world where a single copy of a book could take months or even years to produce. There were no bookstores like we have today. No way to mass-produce newspapers, flyers, novels, or even a simple pamphlet. If you wanted to own a book, chances were it was handwritten by a scribe or a monk and cost more than a house. But then, in the mid-1400s, a shift happened that would change the course of human history. The invention of the printing press. Let's look closer. How did this one machine unlock a revolution of ideas, literacy, and even the future of science? And why did it take until the 15th century for such a vital technology to emerge? Let's start with a passage from a famous poem about the magic of books. A book is a dream that you hold in your hand. Think about that. Before the printing press, these dreams belonged almost entirely to the wealthy or the powerful. Now, suddenly, ordinary people could share in them too. Why? Because the printing press turned the book from a rare treasure into something almost anyone could own. What does printing press really mean? At its most basic, it's a machine that allows letters and images to be transferred, printed, over and over onto paper, parchment, or another surface. The concept sounds simple now, but in the mid-1400s, putting it all together required a bold mixture of new metallurgy, engineering, and even a bit of luck. Most people credit Johannes Gutenberg in Mainz, Germany, as the inventor. But the journey was more of a relay race, taking inspiration from woodblock printing in China, advances in papermaking, and metalworking done by generations before him. Here's how the invention worked. Imagine assembling tiny metal letters called Moveable type, arranging them into words and lines, then fitting them into a frame that becomes a page. Each letter is coated with ink, paper is pressed down, and voila, instant reproduction. If you want 100 copies, you just repeat the process. No scribe needed. No hand cramps, no ink blots, no slow mistakes or omens scribbled in the corners. The same information appears again and again. Now, while Gutenberg's name is forever linked to the press, it's important to remember he didn't invent writing, ink, or even the idea of printing on a press. What he did was combine existing technologies in a new way, making the process fast and practical. Before this, woodblock printing was already in use in East Asia, but movable metal type made a leap in speed and flexibility. Letters could be reused, rearranged, and the results were crisper, more legible, and crucially, cheap enough that books could finally break free from monasteries and universities. Let's pause with another line, taken from a philosopher reflecting on learning. Learning is the only thing the mind never exhausts, never fears, and never regrets. Maybe these words hit even harder when you realize how rare it once was to be able to learn at all. Most Europeans couldn't read. Even those who wanted to simply couldn't get their hands on a book. The printing press changed that. Suddenly, the cost of producing a book dropped dramatically. Some historians estimate by as much as 90%. So what happens when thousands of people can finally afford to buy books? For the first time, ideas could spread quickly, without being filtered or changed by scribes along the way. This is how new religions, revolutionary philosophies, and scientific insights started to sweep across continents. The most famous early printed book is the Gutenberg Bible, completed in the 1450s. It was a marvel, beautiful, with intricate lettering and layout that mimicked the best handwritten manuscripts. But unlike those handwritten treasures, the Gutenberg Bible wasn't unique. It could be copied 50, 100, even 200 times. A church in Germany did not need to wait for a monk to spend years writing out another Bible. It could simply order a book, printed on demand. Here's another poetic line about the spread of light. Knowledge is the light that drives out darkness. No wonder the printing press accelerated the Renaissance, Reformation, and the scientific revolution. For the first time, thinkers, scientists, and artists could read each other's works across time and distance. Imagine living in Florence and reading a new medical text printed in Paris, or a mathematics treatise from Venice, almost as soon as it was published. It's easy to see how this technology didn't just save time. It changed the very structure of society, the way people worked, governed, and even worshipped. Martin Luther translated the Bible into German and had it printed, making religious texts accessible to the masses. Suddenly, the power of interpretation shifted, and individuals could read and interpret religious doctrine for themselves. Let's reflect. If you could suddenly access information that was once kept locked away, how would it change your thinking, your sense of self, your relationship with authority? For many people living in Europe in the 16th century, that transformation was seismic. The arrival of cheap books and pamphlets led not just to new religious movements, but also to questions about science, governance, and the rights of individuals. Before the printing press, error and drift meant a book copied in Paris could be quite different from one copied in Rome. Over centuries, small mistakes crept in, and entire chapters could be lost or swapped by accident. Printing changed that. Each copy could be nearly identical, preserving not just words but ideas, reliably from one generation to the next. Let's take a moment with these lines from a famous speech to understand the world that was opening up. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. For centuries, ignorance and closed access to information created barriers and divisions. But with each printed page, the wall between those who knew and those who could not began to crumble. The changes didn't happen overnight. Booksellers and printers set up shop across Europe, but not everyone welcomed this innovation. Authorities, be they monarchs or religious leaders, realized quickly the double-edged sword that printing presented. Censorship followed, sometimes brutally. Pages, books, whole print runs were burned or banned, but the press kept running. By the early 1500s, cities across the continent boasted hundreds of printers. By the end of the 16th century, millions of books had been printed. Ideas had never traveled so quickly, so far. Let's reflect with words from a poem about creativity. I dwell in possibility. With the invention of the printing press, possibility itself expanded. Now, a scientist's notes could reach another experimenter. A poet's vision could inspire someone living 1,000 kilometers away. The modern world of shared culture, news, politics, and even entertainment traces directly back to Gutenberg's workshops. Now, it's tempting to think of this as a one-time leap, but innovation never really stops. The printing press, as radical as it was only the beginning. Later, steam-powered presses, then lithography, and eventually digital printing would come. But the basic idea, a system for rapidly, cheaply copying words and images, remains at the heart of how we share and multiply human knowledge. When you pick up a paperback, read a manual, even flip through a menu, you're holding a piece of that history. It's easy to take it for granted. But imagine, just for a moment, living in a world without mass printing. Every note, every story, every technical guide, back to being rare, fragile, hand-copied artifacts. Let's sit with another poetic line about memory and recording. To be remembered is to live forever, in the words that we leave behind. Printing gave people a kind of immortality, a merchant's story, a scientist's observation, a poet's verse, all could be preserved far beyond a single lifetime. This wasn't just about the elite either. Printing gave rise to the newspaper, the pamphlet, even the first bestsellers, books so popular and accessible that they shaped public opinion on a massive scale. Now, let's circle back to an earlier question. Why did the printing press appear when it did, and not earlier? Several threads had to come together. Paper was finally becoming cheap enough in Europe, thanks in part to new imports and manufacturing techniques learned from China and the Middle East. Metalworking had advanced to the point that thousands of little letter blocks could be cast with precision. And crucially, a rising middle class was hungry for knowledge. Traders, lawyers, and craftsmen who didn't just want to rely on word of mouth. They wanted to read the latest law, the best techniques, the stories of lands far away. We might say the printing press was invented because the time was right, a blend of curiosity, skill, and sheer necessity. Of course, with every leap in how we make things, there are unexpected consequences. By spreading knowledge quickly, the printing press fueled debate, dissent, and sometimes chaos. Old authorities were challenged, new ideas tested, and literacy rates began to climb. In one generation, the ability to read went from rare privilege to something that millions aspired to. By the 1600s, even tradesmen and artisans might own a Bible, a manual, or a book of poetry. Let's end with one more line from a philosopher's reflection on wisdom. Wisdom begins in wonder. The press ensured that wonder could spread across nations, across languages, across generations. Every printed work became an invitation to ask, to imagine, to understand. So, the next time you see a page of print, whether in a book, on a menu, or scrolling through your feed, remember, all of it traces back to that extraordinary moment in a German workshop nearly 6 centuries ago. The invention of the printing press didn't just change how we make things. It changed what it means to know, to remember, and in so many ways, to be human. Every book, every letter, every idea had to be copied out by hand. Imagine a world where a single copy of a book could take months or even years to produce. There were no bookstores like we have today. No way to mass-produce newspapers, flyers, novels, or even a simple pamphlet. If you wanted to own a book, chances were it was handwritten by a scribe or a monk and cost more than a house. Most people credit Johannes Gutenberg in Mainz, Germany, as the inventor. But the journey was more of a relay race, taking inspiration from woodblock printing in China, advances in papermaking, and metalworking done by generations before him. Imagine assembling tiny metal letters, called movable type, arranging them into words and lines, then fitting them into a frame that becomes a page. Letters could be reused, rearranged, and the results were crisper, more legible, and crucially, cheap enough that books could finally break free from monasteries and universities. The printing press changed that. Suddenly, the cost of producing a book dropped dramatically. Some historians estimate by as much as 90%.